Welcome to Aesthetically Speaking with Felicia Lisa Middleton, presented by Urban Aesthetics, where we love buildings.
Hello and welcome to Aesthetically Speaking, where we are building conversations about Philadelphia's locations. My name is Felicia Middleton, and this season we will be discussing gentrification and how it affects Philadelphia's neighborhoods, sites, and communities. I am here this week with Kevin Buckner, Ling Dan, and Calvin Snowden.
Hello.
Kevin and Ling own a company called Dan Buckner Design Group, and Calvin Snowden is managing partner of BDFS Group. We are all a part of Philadelphia's design and construction scene, and we'd like to talk a little bit about gentrification and how it's affecting Philadelphia, our lives, and the lives of many of the citizens of Philadelphia.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So I was talking with Calvin. I'll just jump to you first, only because we had a recent conversation about gentrification, and it was interesting, but it was actually something that I agree with. He said he loves gentrification. So Calvin, just tell me a little bit about what you think about gentrification.
Well, so as an entrepreneur, especially in the construction industry, I love gentrification, right? Because that means that more construction work is being done, properties are being renovated, communities are changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other side to it is me as a resident, and I grew up in Washington, D.C. I left Washington, D.C. in the 90s, and they called it Chocolate City. Now when I go back over the past 20 or so years, D.C. has changed so much that it's not the city that I knew.
Okay.
So I see the benefits of gentrification, but I also see the downside of families that had homes in the Washington, D.C. area, or even here in Philadelphia, where for years and years, that these families are now being displaced, and the neighborhoods have changed from what we traditionally know them to look like.
And actually, that's one of that's the big downfall that I hear a lot in Philadelphia. Now, you and I are all in the same industry, design-wise, and construction, and again, we like gentrification.
Absolutely.
But we see, just like Calvin said, we see the negative side of it.
Yeah.
Now, what sides of it and how can you see? Now, did you grow up in Philadelphia?
I did.
You did?
I grew up in Mount Airy in Germantown.
And Kevin?
Yes, West Oak Lane.
West Oak Lane?
Can't even get simple anymore.
I grew up in Germantown, lived a little bit in Strawberry Mansion. So, as Philadelphia residents, we can resonate definitely with what Calvin was just saying.
Yes.
But as designers, tell me a little bit about your profession and its connection with gentrification, as well as your lives.
Sure. Would you like to?
Sure. Well, design, we benefit from gentrification, honestly.
Yes.
I mean, we have to welcome it. I can't walk into a community of lower income families and give them design services and expect them to be able to pay for it.
You could, doesn't mean. They may not get what you know. They may not get the full package.
Exactly.
So to speak, but we could.
Well, they have more important things to worry about.
Absolutely. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yes.
So, to your point, they're not. They're trying to put food on the table. We're ultimately trying to figure out where they're going to send their kids to school. They're not worried about designing their house. A lot of our clients have money, right? The influential clients, they seek out our services. They want to better their house, enrich their lives. Hopefully, we can help them do that.
Yes.
So it's great for us, as a design group. I am saddened by it somewhat, though, that to Calvin's point, the people who traditionally live in these neighborhoods are now being forced to move out.
Yeah.
Some of them, I'll use force very loosely. Some of them want to get out because they see it as a potential payday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll get a check, and I'm just making it up for $100,000 for a house, and maybe that's more money than they've ever seen. Not realizing they now need to go out and buy a house that's $120,000. So now they're in an apartment. So when I see gentrification, it's good for my pocket. It's bad for my community.
Right.
I like that. I like what you just said. And also back to what Ling was saying, forced to find schools. There's good and bad in that area too. some of the good that I've seen with gentrification is that more schools are being built, but then some of the bad is we're seeing, I know 3 of my schools that I went to are closed.
Right.
So you start seeing your schools closing down, especially, I'm sure it probably happened in DC too, because I know it's happening all over the country.
Absolutely.
Schools are closing down. You're forced out of your neighborhood, like you were saying. Also, you're forced to suburbs sometimes, and in the suburbs, you know, it's difficult sometimes to get around if you're low income.
Sure.
We were talking about our clients and low income clients. Sometimes I do have clients that are low income just because of the situations that they're home getting and they need repairs. But when it comes to gentrification and the effects of it, of just it being gentrification in general, I see clients that are low income that are really, I go to these neighborhood meetings and they're really upset because they're saying, I bought this house, I've been in this neighborhood.
Sure.
And you know how we feel about our neighborhood. Just like you just did your talk for
That's right. What's the plan?
You know, that's how I am about G-Town.
I hear you.
Yeah, Germantown. So we're proud of where we're from. Chocolate Town, like you said. We love gentrification. Chocolate City. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not as familiar with DC. But so we all like, because we are educated in design, we work in the design and construction field. We like gentrification in some areas.
Sure.
I always liked it. I remember talking about it in school, and people used to say a lot of negative stuff about it. But I would always sit there and go, I want to see my neighborhood improve.
Sure, I do.
Because while I was at Temple, I was living in the hood. I was living in Strawberry Mansion.
Right.
And I used to walk around looking at that building saying, wow, I wonder what that's going to be. I wonder what's going to, you know, what that could be. So I never thought about the negative effects of people's housing, the taxes shooting up. That's what I hear the most. You know, you get older people that live in these houses and they can't keep up with the taxes. So like you said, it's a payment.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing to think about, there's 2 things, right? You talk about the taxes. That is another way to force gentrification, right?
Yes.
The way to move them out is you shoot my taxes up, I can no longer afford it. But the other side is you lose that. With the gentrification, another downside is you lose the culture of that community. And what I mean by that is, you say G-Town, I say Chocolate City. As people transition to these areas that have never lived there, they lose that. You know, there's areas of the city here that they've changed the name. North Philly, you look at Brewery Town, right? Or Francisville.
Sure.
That's North Philly, right? But in order to make that name, to sell those places at $450K, we have to come up with a cool sounding name.
Yeah,
and so areas that I may identify as something else are now gone and people don't know. And so,
the history goes with it.
And the history goes because Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Johnson, who's lived on the block 60 years, has been moved out. And you don't have that community anymore.
Exactly.
So,
and that's some of the things that in school, when I used to think about how I liked the concept of gentrification, I never thought about that. Where we lose the culture. I love Philadelphia because of the history behind the neighborhoods. And then when you start thinking about, you know, pretty soon maybe Germantown might not be called Germantown anymore.
right.
You know, they might come up with some new name. I asked somebody recently, what section of the city do you live in? And they were a transplant. And they said Newbold.
Yeah.
I don't even know where that is.
I don't even know
It's
where
somewhere in South Philly.
Yeah.
And so it's a new, Newbold.
It's over by Graduate Hospital area.
Yes.
And they came up with, once again, a new name to make it sound.
Sell the properties. And then you don't want to have a negative connotation towards some of the people that are moving in because they want to, sometimes they want to become a part of the culture. Sometimes they're buying homes, they're excited. It's my new home. So they may not know the history. Sure. They may not know that this was once a dilapidated neighborhood. All they know is they're buying a nice home. It's a lot of nice people walking their dogs and
Exactly.
So
I'm okay with it. Look, to a certain extent, I'm okay with it because I don't want to live next to Ray because Ray doesn't take out the trash, and they put garbage in the porch, and they're smoking weed in the backyard. Like I don't want to live next to that. So I think it all depends on what stage of your life you're in.
I agree.
When I was young, it was the thing to do. You could do all this stuff. So it's part of what I was doing. But as I get older now, it's like, no, I want my property value increased. I want you to clean your gutter so my house doesn't flood. Right. Like if you're living in a row home, I want you to clean, keep your house clean so you don't have roaches. I mean, all the things that come with living in the city come also with gentrification. Because gentrification is, in my mind, a backwards time lapse of that property falling apart, right?
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
It started
just kind of going back.
And it has a history behind how it took that negative, have that down that downward crawl. And the sad part about gentrification, though, there are neighborhoods in Philadelphia that have maintained. You didn't have Ray Ray.
Yeah.
You didn't have, people would clean up their blocks, they would put their little flowers out, and they maintained it. And they grew old, and they lived there, and they loved it. And they loved having coffee on the porch with their neighbors. But guess what? One person may have died in their household, and they somebody renovated, and then it just started a trickle down, a ripple effect.
Yeah, sure.
And now you have a neighborhood changing over, and you have people that they're losing that community.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree.
That's where I feel sad for some of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when people think of gentrification, they think of North Philly.
Yes.
But it can happen in Mount Airy, like around my grandmother's.
Yeah.
People are buying. It is.
It can happen in the suburbs.
Suburbs.
I've seen it happen in the suburbs, which is really, it's funny. And some of the, I have this new term that I'm creating for some of the suburbs, reverse gentrification.
Sure.
Because what happens, we're starting to see this in a suburb that I lived in at one time.
Sure.
Upper Darby, where I can see the.
Is that really a suburb? No, I'm just asking about it.
Well, it is almost like.
Sorry for people out there.
It is almost like Philadelphia.
Yeah.
West Philly. I like that term, West Philly. That's a good one. And they tried to gentrify a little bit there with 69th Street. Do you remember 69th Street?
I do.
Yeah, and 69th Street was grandmother would take you and shop, and they tried to gentrify it.
Yeah.
But I think the flight out to the suburbs from some areas started having negative effects, because when you start having that impact at one time of low income, and not to down low income people, but just as sometimes there's more services and more needs that are required with low income, and like you said, there's more focus on certain things and less focus on construction.
Should we look at gentrification as? And I know I'm sounding like Claire's commentary, but when you look at gentrification as a positive thing and not necessarily a negative thing.
That's why I say the good, bad, and ugly, because it can be all of that. All of that,
you're saying reverse gentrification. I mean, you do want to see the neighborhoods, grow, right? And you do want to see them turn over, because that's, to me, a cycle of life, right? You want to see potentially maybe a little shopping mall or whatever it is, because there's more people in that community that need to be services. So the supermarkets, the grocery stores, all that type of thing. Now, me being old school, I don't want to see the architecture go away. I don't want to see the buildings.
I don't want to see the look of it.
I'd rather have them be renovated into a new building or into a new property. That doesn't always happen because it doesn't always fit. But gentrification could be good. I mean, you talk about the city in white flight, people moving, just, I would say 10 years ago, moving from the city to the suburbs to start families, right? And now you see the exact opposite. People are moving back to the city, empty nesters, young people, right? So there's a lot, there's just a natural, in my mind, natural cycle of things.
There is a natural cycle, but it seems like the last 10 years it's been unnatural. In Philly.
Well,
I don't know.
This is what I look at. I think that we talked about, it's been a lot of mention of low income, but I think the other side is, some of it is education. And I'm not talking about school education, but what I'm talking about is we tend not to know the value of the property, right? And then people come in and, like you said, offer us more money.
Sure.
There was a big wave where a lot of people would move to Jersey. They moved to Willingboro, right?
Yes.
Because it was new homes, custom built, built in 3 months, but not what a solid brick and mortar. So instead of community, like getting organized and saying, hey, we want to change our community, we would move, right? And so, like, I look at, jumping back to DC, where my aunt lives. She purchased her house for $150,000. It was down the street from Howard University. It was, at that time, a rougher area. Since then, she's still one of the few original residents of the Buck. Her value of her home is like $850,000.
Sure.
They've now took a house next to her, chopped it into apartments or condos, pardon me, and sold each one for $850,000.
Sure.
Right. So her So her neighborhood has changed, and the view of her neighborhood. But what happened was the people who inherited the homes were like, "Oh, this neighborhood will never change. Do you want to give me $200,000, $300,000?
Yeah, sure.
I'm gone." Instead of having the foresight to see that things were in the works, where they started to make a commercial corridor. You saw the change coming. They put a metro stop in down the street, but someone flashes money, and off we go.
Yeah, sometimes you start, like you said, you start seeing little changes. You start seeing bike racks coming.
Yeah.
You see a metro station. Little things before they even start the construction. you can start seeing, and it'll let you know something's happening in your neighborhood. And like a few people in South Philly told me, younger people, not the older people, they said, I want to be a part of the change.
Right, sure.
They said, I'm not that much against gentrification because I'm looking to invest. I want to keep my house. I want to live here. I want to be around all that's going on.
Yeah.
So some people are excited about what's going on.
Sure.
I'm excited. Gentrification, it saddens me in some areas, but it also excites me because Philadelphia is on the map right now. I mean, not on the country map, but it's on the global map.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about
So maybe just think about changing gentrification to another name, just like you do in the city.
Well, let's just make it let's just do the best we can with what we do.
Right.
So we've been talking about gentrification and how it affects our lives. Some of the things I think are good things. We all probably would agree, being in the design, construction, project management business. We've been around Philadelphia. You're a transplant, but you've been here long enough to call yourself a Philadelphian. We've been, we've grown up here. We live here. We love the city, but we also love what we do for a profession. So we can't really hate gentrification. But some of the effects of gentrification, I think we can look at and try to make it better, and that's really one of the goals as people that are in the community and not just being a part of in the community and living off of it, but we also want to work in the community and make it better. So I'm just going to say, from my opinion, I think that would be something that would be our overall goal as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for coming out.
Not a problem.
I enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely.
And we're going to keep our conversation going about gentrification because it's a big deal and it's a lot that's happening in Philadelphia right now.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you again for joining us on Aesthetically Speaking, where we are building conversations about Philadelphia's locations. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel where you can join in on our conversation. Our conversations will continue, where this season we will be talking about gentrification, the good, the bad,